Welcome to the first November edition of the PFF Forecast. It is Wednesday evening. I'm George. I've got Brad. We've got the double Seth edition this week. Once again, we have Seth Galina joining us at the start. He's going to talk Thursday night and Sunday night primetime matchups, key scheme and mismatch advantages. We've got Judah Fortgang, the master of the live betting strategy. We'll put our game plan together for Sunday, and then we're going to close it out with Tej Seth and pick our locks at this point of the week, because we've punted on just one, because with this many great pieces of facial hair, you've got to go for more than one lock of the week. Let's rock. You are live in Cincinnati. Can we get, before we jump into Thursday night football, give us your quick 60-second assessment of Cincinnati as a city?
This is what I tell everybody. And, I come from a city that's I think it's like Montreal is like a top 10 in terms of population city in North America. I think it's like seventh most, and depending on what statistic you use. So big city. And I tell people this when I'm in Cincinnati. Even though I'm like, my hotel is usually downtown, most of the guys here live downtown, you don't even have to look both ways before you cross the street, because you just know there's probably not a car coming. So that is my very quick assessment of Cincinnati. Honestly, I'm not anti-Cincinnati. I like the city. I like coming here. It's refreshing, especially as the weather gets worse in Montreal. It's not as bad in Ohio. So that's my Cincinnati assessment.
How would you agree with Seth, Brad?
Funniest thing, now respectfully, I'll just refrain from any Cincinnati commentary, but I will say when we had Timo Riske fly all the way from Germany for an R&D retreat, and I just found it so funny. This guy traveled, hours and hours to go to Cincinnati, Ohio. I think he was whelmed. He was underwhelmed or overwhelmed. He was properly whelmed.
I think that's
properly whelmed. I like that.
That's a good way to put it. I'll say this: the downtown does not do it justice, because it's one of the worst downtowns that is in existence in human history. But there are other good parts of it. That's how I'll address it. Speaking of things that are underwhelming, the Houston Texans, and things that are overwhelming, the Philadelphia Eagles. They meet on Thursday night. It's in Houston right now. The Philadelphia Eagles 7-0, 5-2 against the spread. The Texans 1-5-1, 3-3-1 against the spread. And the Eagles are a 14-point favorite at this point. Opened up at 9.5 and has moved all the way out to 14 now. So a lot of people, not surprisingly, a lot of smart money is backing the Philadelphia Eagles. So we're going to be a little more pointed with our analysis this time. We've tried to streamline the podcast. So I'm going to start where I normally end the question and answer period of Seth Galina. And that is, talk to me about the biggest mismatch advantage in this game.
I think it's the Eagles' interior offensive line versus the Texans' interior defensive line, and maybe even the linebackers as well. We just saw what happened to the Texans defense, allowing over 300 rushing yards to the Titans. And the Titans offensive line is like, okay. There are some bad parts to it as well, but overall it's just okay. There are no real bad parts to the Eagles offensive line right now. From tackles to guards to center, they're just playing at such a high level. So obviously there's a difference between Derrick Henry and Miles Sanders. However, I think the insane running lanes that Miles Sanders is going to have, because of that interior offensive line, it's going to be too much to handle.
It feels like Miles Sanders was once a running back that was going to be worthy of like a second contract, and like everyone loved this guy. And he's now, I think, he's like flipped onto the other side of things. It's really strange that their offensive line is so good, and yet they've really never had a running back who's done anything of note. So it's interesting as you think about betting this, do you want to back? Is Miles Sanders the way they take advantage of that interior, or is it they spread it around, or Jalen Hurts, or maybe there's value in betting one of the other running backs to take advantage there?
I think my thing would be, I think the game could get out of hand quickly enough that it might not be a Jalen Hurts rushing game. They might just have him hand the ball off the whole time and not really show anything. If it's 14-0 early or something like that, that would be where the value would be in whoever's the backup. Whoever gets the second amount of snaps for running backs after Miles Sanders, or maybe even just Miles Sanders.
Yeah, his rushing prop, by the way, 79.5 for Miles Sanders. That is a lot.
Yeah.
That is a very, very, very high rushing prop total for Miles Sanders. So we'll see. Maybe I'll be compelled. Going to reserve judgment here until we get to the betting portion of the Q&A here.
Yeah, so obviously also not working in favor of that mismatch is Malik Collins, arguably the best interior defensive lineman for the Texans, is not going to play in this game as of a couple hours ago. So, Roy Lopez is a solid player. They have some guys there, but I think Collins is probably the best of the bunch. My question for you is, I searched far and low, near and high to find a strength of the Texans roster. I did find one eventually. They do have a good secondary. They have a lot of depth there. They add Jalen Petrie. They add Derek Stingley, your guy from LSU. They already had Desmond King. They signed Steven Nelson. They have depth and they have good players there. It's kind of the one unit I think is a strength. What can they do to not get absolutely mossed by A.J. Brown like we saw against Pittsburgh last weekend?
Yeah, I'll start by saying, I hope we get to see some good one-on-one matchups between Stingley and either Devonta Smith, which we've seen in college, or A.J. Brown, which we may have seen in college. No, I don't think so. I think they already graduated before that. But anyways, I hope we do see this stuff. How they're not going to get mossed, they're probably going to allow a lot of passing yards and receiving yards to the guys, but how they won't get mossed and put on highlight reels all the time is that they already play a quarter of their snaps in cover two. Lovie Smith's defense, we know the cover two stuff. So at least they could get, two players, quote unquote, on those two outside receivers and not allow them to make as many, kind of deep plays. There are other ways that the Eagles will deal with them. Maybe that's where the read option game comes in, adding an extra runner, an extra ball handler against a light box. But I think it's still, the issue is these guys, Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, can take advantage of anyone. I have high hopes for Derek Stingley, as a player in this league over the next 10 years or whatever, but probably not ready for this assignment just yet. Those two guys are A.J. Brown, play strength and just overall strength off the charts. Smith's route running is out of control as well. So that's how you don't get moss. You just don't let them play in one-on-one situations.
Do we say the word moss enough in that? So you think you can work
Zach Moss, big trade deadline piece. Zach Moss, we'll sneak that in there.
Yeah. By the way, if you have not gone and checked out the trade deadline coverage, and I gotta be honest, for people out there that don't consume the NFL every single freaking day, minute after minute, a lot of incredible trade coverage by Mr. Brad Spielberger. You can find it on the PFF app. Use the letters PFF to search in the Apple App Store. You can go find it. Seth, now that you're in the US, you can download it, which should be a big moment for you. And you can go get all of that great draft coverage, plus all of the betting analysis, both written and model analysis. So with that, Seth, we'll start with you. What is your favorite way to bet this game?
I like Davis Mills over 1.5 rushing yards.
Nice.
The Eagles will get pressure. You can talk about when you talk about one mismatch, you can talk about any of these, versus things versus, units as a mismatch. So Eagles defensive line versus Texans offensive line, not good. They will get pressure. All you need is one scramble, right? And you get over 1.5 rushing yards. So I'll take that.
I love that his neck is about, half a yard. So
yeah,
you only need.
He can fall forward at -4 yards and get to 2 with how long his neck is.
Sneak edge right there. Underrated QB sneak edge for Davis Mills.
Yeah, no kidding. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, we talked about it on Sunday, kind of going back to the well a little bit with the Eagles' first half. It is now over 7. It's at -7.5. I'm not sure that scares me away even still. They have been the best team in football in the first half of games by a decent margin. They are just so much better. My thing also is Nico Collins, wide receiver for Houston, will not play in this game. And I don't know if Brandon Cooks is showing up for this game tomorrow either. I don't know if he's even going to be in the building. If they don't have those guys, I mean, this could be one of the, if not the ugliest games of the entire season. So yeah, I like Eagles -7.5 in the first half.
Yeah, by the way, what Brad is referencing is every Sunday night on the forecast, members of the printing press, if you don't already listen to the Sunday night episode, which you absolutely should, and you should share it with your friends as well, because it's great content. Arjun Menon joins us. We guess the lines. We pick our favorite early bets. I don't want to brag, but like we did go 13-1 last week on our early bets. So it behooves the members of the printing press to listen. We loved the Eagles' first half there. Here's where I'm going to go. I'm going to follow Seth's lead. I'm not going to bet Miles Sanders over the 79.5. I'm going to bet two derivatives of that. I'm going to bet longest rush over 18.5. And I'm going to bet an alt rushing yards of over 125 at +490. So look, if he goes over 79.5, he has over 80. I'm going to go ahead and say like they've probably cleared a large enough hole that he's broken off a big one. And if he does break off a big one, they're going to keep playing him. They're going to, let the guy enjoy a little bit of love there. And I say he goes over 125 in a huge rompus of the Eagles. But this also protects you a little bit against a potential backdoor at 14. Obviously, that's a really big number. And the Eagles have not necessarily sustained that dominance throughout the entirety of the game. All right, let's go to Sunday night. Slightly less lopsided matchup, but lopsided nonetheless. And that's the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tennessee Titans. This one has the Titans visiting Kansas City. So Kansas City just a 10.5 point favorite to open. They're now out to -12. So a lot of respect for the Chiefs here. Total at 46.5. That's down ever so slightly. Both teams 5-2. This has got to be the best, the most lopsided matchup of 5-2 teams that we've seen in a while. The Titans, though, interestingly, 5-2 against the spread. The Chiefs are 3-4. So, Seth, we'll start with this. The biggest mismatch on the field Sunday night will be where?
Whoever Chris Jones is playing against, interior defensive lineman Chris Jones probably will be Aaron Brewer, who is the left guard. He's just not been very good. In fact, the entire left side with Dennis Daly has been bad as well. So I think wherever Chris Jones lines up, that's the mismatch. Like Chris Jones, obviously one of the best interior rushers in the league. And even though, like we talked about, Titans rushed for a whole bunch of yards last week, this is a completely different front they're going up against, and obviously led by Chris Jones.
Chris Jones, the highest graded defensive interior tackle in the league, 92.9 PFF grade. A guy that might be one of the more underrated players, I feel like, in the NFL, at least because he plays on the Titans, is Jeffrey Simmons, who's actually number 2 in PFF grade among defensive interior linemen at 90.9. The difference, of course, is that the Kansas City interior offensive line may be the best in football, would you say, Seth, versus the Tennessee Titans, which are not quite there?
Yeah, that's a really good defensive line. I think that the Titans are going to have to do some interesting stuff up front to deal with that rushing attack. I mean, it's not the greatest rushing attack, but I think that they do have obviously a good interior offensive line. And the defensive line for the Titans is fine, though obviously propped up by Jeff Simmons being, honestly, again, like you said, one of the more underrated. Probably he's in that tier 1 class of defensive tackles. So
yeah, without a doubt.
So, strangely enough, last year, even in a game where Tennessee was actually coming into it with a bunch of injuries, they held Patrick Mahomes to his lowest scoring total of his entire career. It was kind of a blowout, 27-3. Has never scored. First time, I think, only time he did not score a touchdown in a game. What did they do, and how can they try to do it again?
Well, I think so. The first thing is just the way that the Tennessee Titans play the linebackers, very aggressive. I mean, Zach Cunningham and David Long. Long is you see David Long in the backfield on like every play. I'm not saying he always makes a play, but he's at least in the backfield. So it's just, you can have those games where all of a sudden you get behind the sticks, try to run the football, get behind the sticks. Another thing they did schematically that was really interesting was they came with a lot of blitzes, but very specific blitzes. So they're called simulated pressures. Some people call them simulated pressures. And basically what we're doing here is we're sending 4 guys, but it's not the 4 down defensive linemen. We're coming with a safety or a nickel, and we're dropping out one of the defensive ends, or maybe defensive tackle, usually defensive end. So we're trying to get the illusion of a blitz and trying to get the protection to allow us a free rusher while still having the amount of kind of quote unquote maximum amount of zone guys in zone coverage with 7. And they did that a couple of times, and Mahomes had to hold on to the ball a little bit. That's something that the Titans did a bunch last year. I haven't done it as much this year, but I'm curious to see if this is how you get after the Chiefs, who I think it allows you to blitz while still having players over the middle of the field in zone. And we can see that this is where Mahomes and Kelsey are attacking right now. You know, seeing all that cover 2, they're going to attack the middle of the field. They can get away with it, hopefully, with these kind of blitzes that aren't blitzes, sending 4, but still blitzing.
Yeah, you mentioned the simulated pressures. Everyone probably remembers Joe Burrow getting sacked 9 times against the Titans in the playoffs last year, still winning the game, hilariously enough. But the simulated pressures were a huge part of that game plan for the Titans. And if they could have scored any points, might have gotten it across the finish line. It's interesting. We've talked about the Titans and their ability to start games well with scripted plays and then fall off. So interested to see where you guys go with this one. Seth, how are you betting Sunday night?
Yeah, it's hard for me. Look, the Titans have played well against the Chiefs in the Mahomes era, as well as you can play. And like Brad mentioned, I'm just talking about like that game last year, 27-3. So I'm going Titans plus 12.5 because that just seems like such a big number. And the Titans aren't a great football team, but they are 5-2. So I still think that 12.5 is such a big number, even though the Chiefs are playing really well. It's just like, I think the Titans can do a lot of the same stuff they did last year. I'm not saying they're going to win the game. I just think 12.5 is too big for me to go against that.
Well, this might be a PFF forecast first. You and I can maybe battle, have a virtual arm wrestle or something like that. So they are 5-2. They've won 5 straight games against Davis Mills, Carson Wentz, twice against Matt Ryan, and once against Derek Carr. So yeah, they are 5-2. I think that changes it a little bit. You mentioned the simulated pressures. Amani Hooker, I think, is a great safety that can do that. Did not practice today. Might not play in this game. But I mean, you're probably right. But early lines on Sunday, I took Kansas City. I think it was minus 11 or 11.5. I'm still laying 12.5. Maybe in part the extra motivation of Tennessee kicked our ass last year. We're coming off a bye. And they are 5-2. So you view them as a threat. They got the 1 seed last year. They took away the bye that maybe puts you in the Super Bowl if you're Kansas City. Kind of more motivation and narrative than analysis there. But nevertheless, I'm still laying it all. I think Kansas City is going to absolutely blow the doors off them.
I don't mind that. Just to add a little diversity here, I would think about Derrick Henry under, given what Seth just said about that mismatch. I don't see that number out anywhere, but given last week, I'm going to go ahead and guess people are going to extend themselves on Derrick Henry. So I would look to bet under. But here's where I'm going to go back to my favorite prop is going to be Patrick Mahomes passing touchdowns over. And the reason for that is Andy Reid coming off a bye, all the things Brad just said, and the fact that the coverage unit, for the Tennessee Titans, it's not the strongest on planet Earth. I think they'll be able to take advantage of it. Some of the aggressiveness that they have, they'll be prepared for that this time. So I'm rocking with my boy, Pat Mahomes. We now reach my favorite part of the entire show. That is Seth's pet peeve. He told us pre-show, yeah, I have a pet peeve, but really I just have something that annoys me. So that's kind of the mood right now of Seth Galina. What's your pet peeve this week?
Okay, so I just added one just because I wanted to get some more analysis in because I can't stop talking about football. So something that annoys me is the Tennessee Titans against play action. And we talked about how aggressive those linebackers are. It kills them. They're the worst play action defense in the league. And that's another way that the Mahomes and the Chiefs can get after them. Okay, what annoys me? Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju.
I love the pause.
Juju Smith-Schuster wearing number 9. All right. I have no problem with Juju Smith-Schuster. I literally have no opinion of him. Is he good? Is he bad? I don't care. What I care about is his nameplate is too long for a single digit, which is what he's doing now in Kansas City. I think he needs to go to a double digit. 11 would be a good one for him with that long nameplate. If he had, like, 9 is a fine number. If you had like a name like Hall or something like that, Smith, no problem. You can't be Smith-Schuster and just wear a single digit. That's my pet peeve of the week.
Good. Well, at least you avoided talking about Cincinnati's lack of food in the downtown area. Good for you. Congratulations. You won't get any hate mail. Seth, you are fantastic. We appreciate you coming on and spreading some knowledge for us. Everyone should go follow Seth. I think it's PFF_Seth, lowercase, on Twitter. He's a fantastic follow. We appreciate you. Thanks for hopping on, buddy.
See you guys.
Symbol, SIMBULL. It's stock market for sports. Use promo code FORECAST when you sign up, and you can get 30 back money back guarantee, plus your first risk-free deposit up to $500, which is pretty awesome. You can go buy shares of your favorite team. You can then trade those shares and also get a dividend when your team wins. So go to Symbol on your mobile app and look for the app by typing SIMBULL and use promo code FORECAST. All right, before we get to Judah, DraftKings, we talk about a lot of different sports books, but DraftKings really makes it worth your while. So go download the app. They're an official sports betting partner of the NFL. We just gave you some awesome bets you can go place right now on DraftKings. And if you use promo code promo code PFF, you can get $200 in free bets if you just win a $5 bet on any team. It's that easy. We just talked about 2 teams that are double-digit favorites. So go make it happen. Plus, there's stepped-up same-game parlays. You can parlay all the picks that we just talked about and get a stepped-up little boost there. So go download the app, use promo code PFF, and get $200 in free bets. All right. After that impressive display, it is time for Judah Fortgang. All righty, we've got Judah Fortgang joining us once again. We're going to talk live betting strategy and any alt lines that he likes. He's the master of identifying those edges, whether it be a first quarter, whether it be a first half, some angle that you wish you had come up with. That is what Judah finds for you and then delivers. He bets all of these angles live. You can go follow him, Throw the Damn Ball, on Twitter and watch him do it in action every single Sunday. Judah, how's it going, brother?
Things are going great. Glad to talk ball.
Let's do it. Let's jump in and let's start with the alternate line plays that you like. For members of the printing press who might be new, you go and you see the spreads that are out there and you can bet those, but you can also bet, alternative lines where you get different odds for them. So you might have, a team that's a 3-point favorite, but you could bet them to win -10, by 10 or more. And you get some different odds there. So that's what we're talking about. What do you like this week?
Okay, I've got one. We're combining actually an alt spread and a team total. Here's the case. Andy Dalton, believe it or not, has actually been dominant so far this season. He's top 10 in EPA. He's top 10 in PFF grade. What's most surprising, though, is he's doing it in the stable metrics, right? It's clean pocket, early downs, without play action. He's avoiding negative plays. All of those, he's top 5 in the NFL, right? There's little evidence to suggest from 2022 that this play is like fluky and unquestionable. And then as a result, the Saints' offensive efficiency is top 5. Okay, there are matchup angles as well. Baltimore has not been generating pressure at all. Again, he's top 5 from a clean pocket. Lamar's production has basically entirely come against the blitz this year. He's got a 0.27 EPA against the blitz, a negative 0.04 EPA when not blitzed, and the Saints only blitz 17% of the time. That's just another matchup angle. There's also a clash. The New Orleans run defense has been number 1 in EPA each of the last 2 seasons. Obviously, Baltimore relies on their run game to get going. Okay, but this isn't really the point. This is an Andy Dalton question, right? Is Dalton the savior? I have no idea. But if the above is true, right? If Dalton is actually a top 5 quarterback or playing at it at the current moment, we're getting plus 310 here, right? That's the key. He may or may not turn out to be, a top 5 quarterback. Mm-hmm. But if the thesis is true, I'm not getting even odds here. I'm getting plus 310. And it's just one simple idea coming to fruition that Dalton's actually probably playing like a top 5 quarterback, and I'm getting plus 310. Right? That's the tail I want to leverage. It's asymmetric. I'm either losing my money or I'm gaining 3 times that. And that's a spot I really like.
Have you considered that this game is being played on primetime on Monday night as opposed to at 1 p.m. on Sunday?
This is like the Kirk Cousins Andy Dalton effect.
I'll tell you this. So I mean, to your point, like Dalton has played really, really well, and we're talking about this on Sunday night, myself, Brad, and Arjun, because I was like, look, I love the Saints in this spot, and then I was like, oh shoot, this is Monday Night Football, Andy Dalton playing in primetime. Like I will never forget the first Thursday night primetime game I watched Andy Dalton. I think I had Jeremy Hill on my fantasy team. And it was a complete and utter disaster and nightmare. And I will never lose that memory from my mind. But, the point here is that instead of betting, to your point, you're getting those asymmetric odds. So you are, benefiting potentially from a little bit of, hesitancy on Dalton. And obviously he's been really good this year. I mean, he's been really outside of Mahomes, Hurts, and Geno Smith, and Josh Allen, has been one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best, other than that quartet in the NFL. Brad, you're a New Orleans guy. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, my Saints. I think the Dalton thing, we obviously saw him in Dallas and Chicago. With Dallas, it was okay. With Chicago, it was bad, but obviously bad pass blocking. We talked about last week, the Raiders had 2 quarterback pressures against the Saints last week. I mean, that might have been the craziest stat of the entire Sunday slate. I like it. It's interesting. One thought I had for you coming into this week, it was actually about this game before I knew you liked this play. When looking at live action, I know this is an alt line, but kind of plays into live betting. We have Ravens coming off a Thursday into a Monday night, almost a full bye week. New Orleans, obviously a standard Sunday to Sunday. Have you looked into it all if there is teams that play better the first half, or maybe they have a slow start because they've had time off, and then maybe, let's say hypothetically, teams do, they have good first quarters or good first halves off a bye, and then we could even get Saints live or something like that, or vice versa. Do you want to get it beforehand because the team that's more recently played is going to start out hot and maybe fade down the stretch? Have you looked into that at all? Is there any signal or anything there at all?
Yeah, it's generally pretty noisy for 2 reasons. Number one, it's a small sample, right? Just like there's only one bye in a season, and for teams, it is team dependent. In which case, you're not really going to get kind of a full sample. That's good. That's what everyone knows the narrative that Reed and Mahomes off a bye are elite. Like that's one that sticks out. If anything, I think that's probably priced in. But I do think you raise a good point. And maybe here we can talk about live betting, which is something I'm monitoring. Is kind of this matchup I alluded to earlier about the Ravens rushing offense going up against the Saints run defense. Run defenses can be great. And maybe that's like stable. The Saints have been top 3 each of the last 3 years, but it's a different animal. And by the way, they've been top 5 stopping quarterbacks, runs, design runs, and scrambles included. It's a different animal when you're facing Lamar Jackson, right? So I'm looking to see early if Lamar Jackson is looking to run, that might be the engine of the Ravens offense. And if he's doing so successfully, I might kind of want to peel back on my thesis as I see it not really coming to fruition. I'll be a little bit more patient with Dalton and the offense because I think that's built on a stronger base. But I don't really feel the same way about Lamar Jackson running the ball. It's Lamar Jackson. The numbers can kind of be thrown out if he's the magician, Harry Houdini against the Bengals on a 60-yard touchdown run. That's something that can change the complexion of the game. So that's kind of an angle I'm looking at that I might want to hedge off.
Yeah, it's interesting. You might also identify maybe a play or two, a big play or two that comes in a somewhat fluky way. Maybe there's a missed tackle here, but there's a few Lamar runs. They stop most of them. Then something kind of fluky happens that gets Baltimore out to an early lead, but you expect that not to continue. Or you mentioned the blitz play as well, right? How does the passing game look against that non-blitzing New Orleans defense? So that's your first live betting angle. You publish a fantastic piece every single week. Everyone should go read it, where you talk about leveraging those tails, what alt lines you're going to play, and your live betting strategy, which is my personal favorite, because as I mentioned, and members of the printing press know this, it is hard to keep your wits about you when all the football is happening, and betting live can be a lot. So going into it with a strategy and a game plan is a lot of fun. It's really cool to watch you do it. What are the angles that you like for in-play live betting this week?
Okay, I'm going to start with the Rams-Bucks game. Okay, the LA offense is essentially a point better per drive scripted versus not. Okay. The Bucks defense is bottom 3 against scripted plays. Okay. It wouldn't be thoroughly unsurprising to see the Rams kind of jump out to a lead. Tampa Bay, the offense, pretty much exactly the same. And their defense is actually a top 3 unit after the scripted plays run out. So I want to see this game play out 2 ways. Either the Rams jump out to a lead. I'm going to probably be able to, let's say they go up, 7-0 at the end of the first quarter. The line's probably going to be something like Rams minus 2.5. And I'm going to want to get it back to the original line now, plus 150, because this should be priced in, right? Like we know the long range, the long-term theory of the game remains exactly the same as it was pre-game. There's just a little bit of noise that should be built in, but it's not team adjusted because markets can't adjust for that. Okay, so if the Rams go up 7-0, and the Bucks don't really respond on offense, I'm looking to bet the Bucks, probably the all-spread money line at plus money. If not, if the game's like 7-7 or 10-7, I'm still going to be looking to buy the Rams under. Why? Because they're terrible off script, and the Tampa Bay defense is really good off script. So I think you kind of have to, there are a bunch of different angles depending on how the first quarter flows, but I think they generally confirm to the thesis of Rams are going to get worse as the game goes on. The Bucks are going to get a little bit stronger.
That's really interesting. Everyone obviously remembers the NFC Championship game where the Bucks could not help themselves and continued to blitz Matt Stafford, and it obviously hurt them ultimately in the end on that play that won the game to Cooper Kupp. I wonder if the Bucks have learned from that, or if they're looking at that Rams offensive line and going, yeah, they can't protect anything, so we're going to keep blitzing away and dare Stafford to beat us. But that would be something I'm looking for in that game as well. Okay, what's your next angle here?
A little less sexy, but hey, that's where the money's made. I'm going to look for the Washington Commanders and Minnesota game to go over. Okay, these two defenses, again, we're going to the scripted stuff. Number 2 and 3 defensively on scripted plays, and Washington gets about a point better per drive after the script. Okay, I'm going to be looking. This game is at 42.5, 43. I don't remember where it's at right now. Assuming it closes something like that, I'm going to be looking for a low-scoring first quarter. The line to get to about 34, 35, 36, and I'm going to play the over, knowing that the Vikings are basically the same on script versus off script, and Washington's going to get a lot better. The defenses are both worse off script. Also, this is Taylor Heineke, and he gets far better just kind of throwing YOLO balls when he's off the script. Right? I'm looking for him to throw a 60-yard bomb to Terry McLaurin to get us over the over.
Same.
Love
actually.
that.
Yeah, we talked about this game a little bit on Sunday, and the Heineke stuff is so funny. It's almost like Russell Wilson, where you want him playing off script to start the game. Like that's where it's best, and they feel like kind of that ultimate. Doesn't matter how ugly the game is, they're gonna keep playing until the end and make some sort of Herculean effort. On the flip side, right, Minnesota kind of has their thing, their stuff together. It'd be interesting to watch how Minnesota's O-line, combats that Commanders line, defensive line. Love both of those. Brad, do you have anything to add? Do you have any angles to add to see if Judah likes them or not?
No, I should come prepared with some potential live thoughts. Put him at the test. Put his feet to the fire. I was looking forward to the Washington and Minnesota discussion. We obviously, like you said, we talked about that on Sunday. I love that one. I think that is. I guess I'll ask you. Just what do you think about? Not even tied to live betting, but who do you like in that game if you had to pick?
If I had to pick, I think I'd go Minnesota. Only because I'm not sure. Heineke's a bunch of variants. Right, I think that the stability of a team like Minnesota, we know what we're going to get from them. Right, like this is why we call Kirk Cousins the Kirk, and that's why he's the archetype quarterback. I think it's pretty stable. With Heineke, you're not going to get that. You might get the 60-yard bomb to Terry McLaurin, but you're also going to get a bunch of bad sacks, a pick here or there. And I think just like these teams are not in the same tier. Right, if you just look at it like any of the advanced metrics, you're probably going to find Minnesota at like 12-13. Washington at about 23-24, and there's no angle that's pointing me and saying, "Hey, definitely bet Washington." So I got to go with Minnesota, but it's not anything more than a lean.
You've got Kirk Cousins returning home to Washington. And if there's a player that I'm not confident in having a revenge game go his way, I would say it might be it's Carson Wentz is number one, and then Kirk Cousins number two. So
a clear number one.
It's another way of saying you don't like that.
Yeah, exactly. Here's an angle that I have for you, Judah. I wanted to run by you. Tennessee, generally a good team to start the game. We've talked about them in your strategy a couple of times, where looking to bet the under after they start the game hot, and then the total adjusts. Thinking about this in Kansas City, Kansas City, a big favorite. I don't know what that line maybe or the odds get to, but I would look to bet a Kansas City alt line potentially if Tennessee gets out, scores a touchdown or two. I still believe by the end of the game, there'll be plenty of time for Kansas City to pull away, and that Tennessee team is really not that great, even though they're 5-2. So I think the market will maybe go, they 5-2. It's sort of legit, the game's tied at half or something like that. And I would love to snap up Kansas City at a big number.
Yeah, I think that works. There are a few general rules that are kind of always applicable. If the Bills and Chiefs go down early, their offenses are too good that the margin of error is so high that a couple of first quarter touchdowns are not going to make a difference. Always bet on them because they can score 31 points in 20 minutes. I think that's a general rule. It's a bonus that Tennessee kind of has this scripted stuff and their first quarter success, though I don't know if that would be the same with Malik Willis at quarterback. Which is why I personally held off on them last week. The moneymaker from the previous 7 weeks.
Yeah, it was rough with Wilson there. Brad, is Tannehill supposed to be back this week though?
I think he should be. Yeah. He apparently was more about an illness than his ankle is why he actually didn't play in that game. And that was a priv watching Malik back there take some 3.8 second sacks.
That was tough to watch. Not tough to watch is Judah Fortgang. Wild games are in action. Making some money for us live. We appreciate you, man. This is one of my favorite segments that we've ever concocted here on the Forecast. We appreciate you for hanging out with us late on a Wednesday night, and good luck this Sunday. And we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, we'll hang out with you guys. Let's make some money.
Let's do it. See ya. All right, let's close it out. We've got Tej Seth, the top bun of the Seth sandwich that we provide you all on Wednesday night to the members of the printing press. We still need. I've been waiting for you and Arjun, because you guys are the youth of the printing press, to create some good merch for us. All that I need is I need a shirt, I need a hat that has a printing emoji. That's all. It's very simple. But we're here to pick the locks of the week. So let's get into it. And Tej, why don't you kick us off as we do every single week? We go around the horn, pick our favorite bets. Last week we had, I think, 6 of them. And I believe the only 2 that didn't hit were Chris Godwin, over 6.5 receptions, which was complete BS because he got to 6. And then Kenny Pickett at plus 175. So plus 175 did not throw over 1.5 interceptions, but everything else was absolute money. So Seth, Tej, where do you want to start?
Yeah. Thanks again for having me on. Really excited to be here. If we do merch, I feel like we could do the Greek letters for the printing press, like TPP, and then it could say anyone can rush under it, like a running backs don't matter type fraternity thing.
All right, I'm here for that.
Just something to think about. My first bet that I'm going to go with are the Green Bay Packers in Detroit minus 3.5 against the Detroit Lions. And the reason why I really like this bet is because the Packers wide receivers have struggled against man coverage this year, and that's kind of been the play to go against them and what's kind of hampered their offense. The Lions corners stink, right? Like Jeff Okudah, 43rd ranked corner, is having an okay season. Mike Hughes is the 96th ranked corner, and then Amani Oruwariye is 110 out of 110 on PFF.com. So I really think that if there's one type of defense that the Packers receivers can actually beat in man coverage, it's this type of Lions defense. And we were messaging about this earlier today. Aaron Rodgers has dominated the Lions his whole career. Since 2018, he's thrown 18 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and had a plus 0.3 EPA per play against the Lions. He loves playing against Detroit. He knows, every time he comes, it's going to be a treat for him. And this Lions team is kind of reeling. They just traded away one of their supposed to be franchise cornerstones, and they're kind of packing it in on the season. And so I think you can see some repercussions from that in this game. And that's why I like the Packers minus 3.5.
It's interesting. The Packers, I thought on Sunday night, they got the brakes beaten off of them, but they didn't disintegrate. And I think there's a lot of continued bad press about Aaron that's coming out. I don't know if everyone saw the Von Miller, Richard Sherman clip, but Von Miller sort of alluded to the fact that he talked to Rodgers, and Rodgers, he's like, why did you guys keep running the ball? Why didn't you throw it? And Rodgers said something that Von said, well, I'm not going to say what that is because I don't throw anybody under the bus. But the insinuation was, basically my team sucks. So what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do here? So I can get on board with that. Brad, where are you going?
There was some hurt in that analysis from Tej there, his lines. But I like that one. I'm going to go I'll go with a straight up play. So I mentioned this on Sunday. I really like the matchup. We did talk about last week with Judah. He liked Arizona money line. I think a lot of the things we identified there were sound. DeAndre Hopkins went off in the slot. Rondale Moore actually went off in the slot, so we identified that mismatch. And then also, J.J. Watt had 2 sacks. The interior pressure was a problem for Kirk Cousins. It's been a problem for him his entire career. And maybe no one has a better interior pass rush unit than the Washington Commanders. Jonathan Allen is a monster, and then Deron Payne is a nose tackle, but can generate the occasional pressure, is a very good player. In a contract year, they're playing very well. So they're plus 3.5 at home. They actually were plus 4 when we recorded on Sunday. I know it is the Kirk Cousins homecoming revenge game. Also, some positive buzz. Dan Snyder might sell the team. So, vibes are high. Emotions are in a positive light. I'm kidding on the last point, but I like this matchup for the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. The Taylor Heineke show. It does feel like people are really buying in to the Vikings. I'm sure they'll get some love with the TJ Hawkinson stuff, but are you expecting, again, sorry, Tej. But it'll probably take, a week or so for him to get it together. Let me go to where Seth Galina was when we talked to him, and that is Cincinnati. The Carolina Panthers are going to visit the Bengals. The Bengals 7.5-point favorite. Total here is 42.5. It's a low total. The Cincinnati Bengals played just awful against the Browns. And, you've got people sending pictures on social media where it's like, hey, look at Joe Burrow without Jamar Chase. And it's a picture of Andy Dalton. And that is the ultimate figure what out is when you get compared to Andy Dalton. So Jamar Chase still out in this game, but I don't think it's going to be too much for T. Higgins, Boyd, and the rest of that group to get open against a Panthers team that, they've been fine, but really where the Panthers pick themselves up is with PJ Walker. PJ Walker, 77 PFF grade. He's got almost 10% of his throws have been big time throws. Everyone saw the one to DJ Moore. So their offense starting to get it together. And the Bengals have to get their offense together. So I like over 42.5 in this. Between, I think, a team and the Panthers that has a slightly better than advertised defensive unit. Also, Chidobe Awuzie out with a leg. Mike Hilton, questionable. Not Trey Flowers. Remind me of his name. Brad.
Eli Apple, who are we thinking of?
No, Flowers on the Bengals, but it's not Trey. It's someone else. Anyways, this is great analysis.
I thought it is
Cornerbacks.
It's Trey. It's Trey Flowers, so. But
is it Trey
instead of TRE?
Oh, that's right. It's not
There's
the
two
Trey.
I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I thought it was right. But a lot of injuries at corner, and gives an opportunity for DJ Moore to help my fantasy team and show up here. So that's my first bet. Tej, where you go next?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, really like both of those. And I'm going to go to a game that Judah talked about, when he came on here earlier, and that's Ravens Saints Monday Night Football. And I really like the over in this game that's set at 48 right now. And when you look at the Ravens, they're basically getting a bye in the middle of the season here, going from playing on Thursday night to Monday night. Brad's Bears took advantage of that on game planning to go up against the Patriots a couple Monday nights ago. And I think that the Ravens will take a lot of consideration with that bye to kind of get their offense set, get really healthy because you get so many extra days off. And, when you make the trip down to New Orleans, you can be able to put up a lot of points there. And both of these quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Andy Dalton, are playing at a high level right now. I recently put up a piece at PFF.com where I talked about when quarterback play usually stabilizes on the season. And that's usually around week 8, week 9, we start to see it stabilize. And that's the point we're at in the season. Lamar Jackson ranks 8th in EPA per play. So we know that he's playing at a high level. Andy Dalton currently ranks 5th in EPA per play. So while he'll regress some throughout the season, he is playing at a high level right now, has his full arsenal of receivers to work with in this game. And, the defenses on the other side of the ball were supposed to be pretty good coming into this year, but they haven't been good as well. Like they both rank below average in expected points added allowed, particularly the Ravens defense has really struggled this year. So I think, it's a primetime game, something fun to root for. I think we could see a lot of points in this game, even though I'm going against the primetime under trend that's been happening.
I guess the trend overall is towards the under, right? But we did see some positivity in the offensive direction last week, which maybe that continues. Brad, where are you heading next?
Yeah, another one we talked about that hasn't moved enough to change it is a teaser from Sunday. It is a teaser of the Seattle Seahawks and the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can get the Jaguars out to 7.5. You can get the Seahawks to 8 now against the Arizona Cardinals. We discussed it at length, but really it's just I don't understand why, or I don't see how the Cardinals are going to win any game, maybe the entire season, given how bad they are in scripted plays on both sides of the ball. It's literally they don't know what they're doing to start games on either side of the ball. How they're going to cover over a touchdown, I just don't see it. And then you talk about how the Saints defense has been below average. Well, they just shut out Derek Carr and the Las Vegas Raiders, who are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've also monitored teams coming back from London have really not shown significant effects. It's not that long of a flight for Jacksonville. I don't know if Las Vegas stayed out east like some teams tend to do, but if they didn't, they probably have more of a negative travel effect than Jacksonville does coming back from London. So, I just love that teaser there. I don't even know if either team wins, but I just don't see either team losing by more than a touchdown.
I think that's a good call out. And a nice bet. We talked about it on Sunday night. My nervousness is around Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor, it seems like the negativity around Trevor Lawrence is just like piling on. I don't know. Maybe it's in relation to Justin Fields. He's starting to play a little bit better. At the same time, though, it's like Zach Wilson is over here looking completely lost. I feel like we just decided to kill Trevor Lawrence. My next bet is going to be going to the Sunday night game. I talked about this a little bit with Seth Galina. Andy Reid coming off of a bye against the team in the Tennessee Titans that beat the brakes off the Chiefs last year. An aggressive team that has really struggled against play action. Really, you can, if you're prepared, I think as the Chiefs will be, you can take advantage of them. And it's not like they have any running game to speak of. So if they're going to score points in this game, they're a 12.5-point favorite. I think that means Mahomes is throwing a bunch of touchdowns. He's going to get one of those little pop passes and a couple throws to Kelsey in there as well. So it's not out yet, but I'm guessing the line is going to be 2.5. Probably snap it up at a plus price to start. That is going to be my next submission. Patrick Mahomes over 2.5 passing touchdowns against the Titans. Tej, I think you have one more, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, love that one. And I think that's like a common play is the Patrick Mahomes over 2.5 touchdowns usually hits, which is pretty cool. I'll also go with a prop bet, and I'll do Joe Mixon. It's not out yet, but this is usually what his rushing prop is around. It'll probably be around 68.5 rushing yards. You can take that all the way down to 65.5. We talked about this on the show last week. It was up on PFF.com and the app. Take the Joe Mixon under against the Browns. And it's because Joe Mixon is a really bad rusher, negative 0.98 rushing yards over expected this year. And if you don't want to use the advanced metrics, 3.3 yards per carry, which ranks 29th out of 34 qualifying rushers. And then the Panthers, run defense is pretty good. They allow the 10th least rushing yards per carry in the NFL. And then another factor about this is without Jamar Chase, the Browns, typically a two-high team, played a lot of single high coverages and put an extra man in the box because they don't have to worry about receivers beating them on both sides. And I think we'll see that also from the Panthers and then just kind of the rest of the defenses going forward. So Joe Mixon, already not a good rusher, is going to have to rush against an extra man in the box on half of his plays. And I think that's going to be really difficult for him to keep up. So, when the rushing prop comes out, whether it's in the mid to high 60s, I would take his under there.
Nothing was more invigorating than seeing Joe Mixon as the Browns are winning by 25, continue to gain 1 to 2 yards every time he ran the ball. Brad, where are you going next?
Yeah, so that was I don't have any more because you took one that I was going to say that you and Seth both sold me on. This is a mid-show decision. I did say I like Kansas City earlier. I still do. I already bet at 11.5 earlier in the week, but because Tennessee we know is one of the best teams in the NFL at scripted plays. That works in favor of Mahomes throwing touchdown passes if they maybe do trail early in this game. And then with Seth liking Titans to cover 12.5, see some things he likes, some mismatches there. I love it. I love Mahomes over 2.5 touchdown passes in that game.
The other thing, I just looked, the Tennessee Titans are +7 first half. If you like, they're kind of getting off to a decent start. That could be a play there as well. Your Saints at +2.5 on Monday night. We talked about this on Sunday. I don't want this to be the lock of the week because I can't deal with Andy Dalton, but you could tease them out to 8.5. I don't know. Is he going to throw 2 pick sixes? Everyone's going to be like, hey, remember what happened on Thursday night? Those were a little fluky. There was a drop. He's been playing really freaking well. So you think about the other options. You could tease it with Seattle out to 8, with Jacksonville out to 7.5. So a lot of options there. I'll throw that one out there if anyone really wants to suffer on Monday night. All right, fellas, where do we want to go with the lock of the week? It feels like there's a little less juice towards multiple locks this week, but I'm curious where your head is at, Tej.
Yeah, I know. As always, I really like the picks that you guys gave out. I'm hoping we can continue our hot streak from last week. I think it was one of the best weeks we ever had betting. The 2 picks I really liked from you guys was Brad's Washington +3.5. I think Minnesota has been winning in fluky ways. And Heineke really leans into his variance when he plays, and that can lead to some wide right tail outcomes to happen. And then also the classic Patrick Mahomes 2.5 touchdowns, against a Tennessee defense in a kind of a game where I'm sure they have some pretty cool stuff schemed up, especially in the red zone. Like you mentioned, George, with maybe the underhand throw to Kelsey on the screen or something to get him, some extra passing touchdowns. So those were the 2 plays I really liked from you guys.
The little, every team now runs that. They get the end zone and every team messes it up. They do the little inside, push pass to the tight end. And it's like, please stop trying to be Andy Reid. Brad, where's your head at?
Yeah, so one final point just on the Minnesota Vikings versus Washington. I also love that it's kind of a look-ahead spot for Minnesota. They're at Buffalo and then host Dallas the next 2 weeks after that. With Buffalo, everyone's trying to, show they can play with Buffalo in any way, shape, or form. With Dallas, it's, a battle for the 2 seed in the NFC at this point. So I like that as well. Not that Kirk Cousins is going to overlook, returning to FedEx Field in Washington. But I love that one. And Patrick Mahomes as well. Only one, I am less bullish on doing our 6-pack as we talked about last week, maybe being a little bit more conservative. The last one I would throw in is that teaser I mentioned. I do love that teaser as well.
Okay, so what if we do a 3-pack? Got to go Mahomes over 2.5. We'll throw the teaser in, and then we'll do our Washington Commanders. Let me ask you this, Brad. Where do you between Green Bay and Washington? Because I do love the Rodgers ownership of the Lions angle, but he's a road favorite. Which one do you like better?
Yeah, I don't hate the Packers bet at all.
It's Heineke. Heineke beat Rodgers.
He did. And also, Tej mentioned, though, the leaning into the variance. This Minnesota defense is just not good, in my opinion. Washington is a pretty good offensive line. Yeah, but anyway.
Let's go with the Commanders. Commanders. If you want to bet the Packers, you can do that too. That's not against the rules. The locks of the week, the Washington Commanders +3.5 at home against the Minnesota Vikings. The Jaguars and Seahawks teased out. Jacksonville at 7.5 at home. Seattle on the road out to 8. If you're really crazy, you're going to put the Saints in there as well. And then Patrick Mahomes, an old friend, over 2.5 passing touchdowns. Tej, it's always a pleasure. Hopefully we can repeat last week. Thank you so much for hanging out. Everyone can go follow him on Twitter. Was it Tej Seth Analytics or something like that?
Yeah, Tej FB Analytics.
There you go. Pretty close. And he's got a bunch of great content out there. You can also find it on PFF.com and, of course, the PFF app. So you should check it out. It's all fantastic content. Sir, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We will see you next week.